everybody to the Spoiled Rotten Movie Review Show. My name is Ross, and I welcome you back to the show on this beautiful beginning of June. We're starting to get into the second part of the summer. We're starting to finally get past all those big early releases that you get in May, and then you get into these nice middle part that it's kind of weird because the summer has its big flourishes. You have the big opening in May. You kind of have a nice settling down point in June where you get all of these big films, but it doesn't feel like it's overcrowded. It feels just nice and airy in June. July it heats up again, and then it hits its crescendo at the end of August with its big final release, and then it just kind of quiets down into the fall release date. So nice to have this nice cool area where we're at right now. So for this week, the review we're going to do is Wonder Woman, the new DC Extended Universe film that just came out this week. We're going to be talking full spoilers, so this is my warning, the warning that I give before every podcast, because I know people come into this, they're new, they're fresh, they don't know what's going on. If you have not seen Wonder Woman, have not gone out and watched it yet, put this in your watch later list and go out and see Wonder Woman. We're going into full spoilers here. Everything that I can remember from having seen it a couple hours ago, everything, every plot detail, every, character arc that I talk about here is going to be spoiler heavy. So if you have not seen Wonder Woman, go out, see it, come back and watch this video. With that little spoiler out of the way, let's talk about some Wonder Woman. Now, before I begin, I wanted to talk about the DC Extended Universe in general and my thoughts about it, because that's a very heated topic, especially with pretty much all the past three films that have come out about it. Each one has had both its critics and its detractors be very vehement about how they feel about the film, and it's an interesting to watch on the internet to see so many people either for it or against it and what their opposing views are and whatnot. It's a very interesting debate. But as for my thoughts on it, Man of Steel, I kind of understood what he was going with it, and I think I appreciate some of the things he does with Man of Steel, Zack Snyder does in that film. But there are a lot of narrative and character problems in that film that weigh it down. I think overall I really like Man of Steel enough to the fact that I can be I can watch the film and not be upset, as I know a lot of people are when they watch a film, that it's kind of ruining the Superman character or it's not treating it right. I don't get those vibes. I get from a writer's perspective where Zack Snyder was trying to go with this film. I don't think it all worked out. I think there's a lot of problems with that script and a lot of problems with that film. But I think overall he gave a satisfactory film with Man of Steel. Not great by any means, but I think it was good enough for me to go, that's a pretty good Superman movie. Not great, but good. Batman vs. Superman is one that I want to love, but I really can't. It's very much a mess. I do appreciate some things about it. I love Ben Affleck's Batman in that film. I can't wait to see him again in Justice League. I really like that appreciation of it. I can get past the fact that Batman uses guns. It's a stupid thing. I would more appreciate if he didn't. When I think of Batman, I think of him as someone who doesn't kill, as a person who tries to find any way to injure or maim but not kill. But I can get past that as a person and try to see that character for more than it is. And when you get past it, it's actually a really interesting and fun character, but, dark and that sort of thing. But it's honestly a character that I have to get past the fact that he uses guns, because that's not what my Batman would do. But I can still see this Batman, and it's a good Batman. I love Ben Affleck's Batman, but it's just that one part that kind of irks me a little. It makes me wish that we could get a Batman who doesn't kill. Oh, maybe we're getting that with Justice League. There's a lot that he plays with in Batman vs. Superman where he could stake it so that Batman is went to this dark side of himself that is even darker for Batman, but he's toning it down now that he has friends who's coming alongside him and helping him out. So maybe, you never know. But that film's a mess. Lex Luthor is awful. Superman parts aren't interesting. It's really only the parts where it's Batfleck, Wonder Woman, Alfred, and those characters are interacting and having interesting conversations that I really enjoy that film. Other parts, are kind of bad, and then the third act, the ending there, just kind of drops off into CGI, BS, and it doesn't work as much as I'd like it to. But there are a few things I like about BVS. I don't hate that film necessarily, but it's got a lot of problems, and it would need a lot more rewrites before that was a finished product. I actually like the director's cut a little bit more, but it's still messy. Like, there's still some parts in it that I like, but it's still a little bit messy as far as character wise, and like, you're never, like, no matter how much you fix that film, you're never gonna fix the character of Lex Luthor. That's just a bad character that needed either a recasting or a rewriting, because it's just not done well in that film. And then as for Suicide Squad, which is the most recent adaptation in this franchise up till now, I like it because it takes it to the DCU into a place where I had wanted it to go, but on the other end of it, it's also edited like by monkeys who live in a zoo, because that film is so terribly edited. It's one of the biggest monstrosities of film, that editing in Suicide Squad. I actually like a lot of the characters in Suicide Squad. I like, a couple of the scenes they get where they get to actually act, but most of those characters are rushed into the film. You're just given backstory through dialogue boxes and stuff that only appear on the screen for 5 seconds, and that's it. Like, I know my editing's terrible because I have no money, and so I just use whatever I have on Premiere and just use that to kind of help me work it out. But you guys are working on Suicide Squad, a big budget DC film. You gotta learn how to bring in characters more interestingly and be able to let their characters flow, so I can actually get to know them better than just giving me a dialogue box and then just saying, there's your character, and moving on with that. But I do like the characters. I love the soundtrack. The soundtrack's great. The only problem I have with it is that it's more just trying to have all these big, like, top 40 pop songs from both bygone era and the modern day, whereas something more like Guardians of the Galaxy tries to evoke a theme throughout the soundtrack, no matter whether the song was popular or not. But either way, I mean, if you have a all-time greats album and you put that into a movie, yeah, sure. I could ask for something different, but honestly, I appreciate that album. But yeah, I did find some good things about Suicide Squad, some things that I felt were exactly what I wanted out of the DCEU that hadn't gone either through Man of Steel or Batman vs. Superman. But the editing is so terrible in that movie, it kind of ruins it. And even if you do fix the editing, you have other problems. You have the fact that the third act, or the ending, again, it's a portal in the sky, which we've seen 100 different other times. It's witchy enchantress woman waving her arms like a hula doll. It's not good. That third ending, again, another problem with DCEU movies. The third act falls apart disastrously. Like, first two acts you're okay, but you kind of realize this isn't as good as you want due to the editing and some of the ways they've introduced the characters, but you think maybe they can end strongly, and then they just drop the ball so hard it lands on both their feet and they go cripple for a year, because they just don't know how to end their movies. And so going into this film, I've had 3 films that I've either kind of liked or have been mildly disappointed in, and only had like a few things that I can really appreciate about the films. And so I was nervous because I have Justice League sitting, about 6 months away. I don't know how that looks. And I have Wonder Woman, and who knows what that be, because, back when it was just Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman were the only 2 films that had come out of the DCEU, you could have made the argument that the problem with the DCEU is that it's run by Zack Snyder, and then if you go outside of Zack Snyder, you could actually get some good movies, but Zack Snyder's vision that's causing the problem. But Suicide Squad proved that absolutely wrong. It wasn't just Zack Snyder, because I don't always think Zack Snyder makes the best choices both as a director and as a writer. But when it comes down to it, when he actually makes his films the way he wants to, he can actually make some good stuff. It's not always going to be something I like or that I think is what I would want out of a film, but it's always something that's interesting to watch and interesting to look at, and generally you can even get some good characters and some good plot out of it, and there's some interesting things you can get out of those films. But it was Warner Brothers and the people handling the DC films, just mishandling of how they were treating their filmmakers, overbearing to a point that it was getting too intrusive. They were giving, their films to trailer house parks to edit their films instead of giving it to actual movie editors, so that films were just all choppy and weird and not working. And even in Batman v Superman, there's a lot of choppy editing in there. Not as bad as Suicide Squad by any means. It's not as bad there, but yet there's just like a lot of bad choices made throughout the DCEU that led to the abomination of the editing in Suicide Squad. And so it was interesting for me because I didn't know what to do at this point, because more than anything, I love comic book films, and I love the genre that have been created through this new medium, this new idea of like, we're going to take this long list of lore that's been sitting on shelves for 75, 80 years and not been touched by anyone, and bring that into film. And then we're not only just going to create a comic book genre that's going to go far beyond what it's ever been, but we're also going to create new genres within that comic book genre and become this whole like subsect of culture that we can enjoy. And I've always been intrigued by that and always interested in that. So I want these films to succeed because I want to see that subsection and subculture grow and get more interesting and more dynamic and diverse. So going into this film, I was praying on a wing and a prayer that there would be finally a DC movie that would impress me and get me on the board of this ship, because I want to tell people that the DCU is good and that you should appreciate it. But you look at all the films, which one of them do I say go watch? Because I only kind of enjoyed Man of Steel. Batman and Superman has good things in it, but is ultimately flawed structurally. And Suicide Squad is such an editing nightmare that even if you do appreciate the good characters and good soundtrack and, the few good acting scenes that are given in the film, you're ultimately just going to be confused and, distracted by whatever's going on. And all three films, in my opinion, have messy endings that needed complete rewrites and script reworkings that just weren't given the time to do so. So I needed a film where I could say, I appreciate this film 100%. Even if there's some problems here and there, I can absolutely approve someone going to see this and saying, this is what the DCEU is and why you should be watching it. And I've been waiting for that day and waiting for that day. And I think that day is finally here, because Wonder Woman is exceptionally good film. I was so happy with Wonder Woman. It was like a breath of fresh air, because that you want to say something is good, but you're not able to give an example, but there's something there, and you want to prove to people that there is something there. And now we finally have that something, and it's Wonder Woman, and I'm so freaking happy about that. Let's get into the plot of this, guys, because this is actually a really fun film that I'd love to get into. So it starts off in France. We learned a little bit about this in Batman vs. Superman, but it wasn't really delved into that much. Diane Prince, who is Wonder Woman, if you know who her just human alias is, it's Diana Prince. She's currently working as an art collector. That's what she does in the real life when she's not fighting evil super monsters in Metropolis. She's just a regular art collector who's collecting fine things. That's why the reason she was in Gotham / Metropolis, which I guess is a twin city sort of thing. She's there. She's kind of collecting art, and she gets a package from Bruce Wayne, which is the photo that you see in Batman vs. Superman of her along with her war buddies from World War I. And we got that photo there, but we never got any context to it. And it was basically saying, we're going to get the context to this in Wonder Woman. And after we see her open the box that has the photo in it and see the message she gets from Bruce Wayne, we go right into this film. We go right into her entire origin. That's just basically the setup saying, oh yeah, remember this photo? Well, now we're getting into it here. So it starts off with Diana Prince as a little girl. She's living on the island of Themyscira. And trust me, I'm going to mispronounce a lot of these names because they're a lot of from Greek culture, and I don't speak Greek, so I'm gonna try my best. Foreign names of things always confuse me and get me in a tizzy, and I often had to correct myself and how I say it. So, pardon the terrible speaking. But she's living off Themyscira right now, which is basically this island of gladiator warrior women who were created by Zeus to make sure man stopped fighting against one another in constant war that was being caused by Ares, who is the god of war. Um, but they now live on this private island by themselves, protected from the rest of the world, so that they can basically prepare for if when Ares comes back, they can go out and kill him. And they have a special weapon called the God Killer, which is this like sword that's sitting in like this gold spiral thing, and they basically tell her, one day one of our fiercest warriors is going to have to take up that God Killer should Ares ever return, and we don't ever want him to return. But if he does, we have this God Killer sword that someone will take, and they will kill Ares, and I guess there won't be any more war, and that'll be the end of it. But until then, we just gotta train, we gotta work hard. And Diana Prince is fascinated by all the fighting, and she wants to do it. She wants to learn how to train to fight. And her mother is like, no, you're like the last female warrior prince made by Zeus. We're not going to teach you how to fight until you're much older. Right now, you just need to like learn, and you're my daughter. I don't want you to get hurt. So don't go out. Don't be fighting. But she gets, I don't know if it's her aunt or just someone who's like a trainer. Okay, so it is her aunt. Yeah, it's let's see, what is her name? General Antiope. Oh, I hope I said that right again. Antiope. She teaches Diana how to basically fight like a Amazonian. So she starts teaching her to fight against her mother's wishes, and eventually she finds out. Her mother finds out that she's been fighting, and instead of punishing her or telling her to stop, she says, if you're going to train her, you're going to train her 5 times as hard as any Amazonian. You are going to make her be the strongest and the best fighting Amazonian among any of you, and you're not going to stop until she is the best. And so you get this training montage of her growing and her getting more powerful until you get to the day where she is basically Gal Gadot. She looks, up to her adult phase, I guess. And she is learning to fight. And she's in this training match with her aunt, where she's fighting, and she's fighting a bunch of other people who I guess work for her aunt, who are like her soldiers. And they're all fighting and having this big, nice opening action scene that's fun and interesting. And then her aunt steps in and tries to fight, but Diana is not really that powerful yet. She's trying, and she does a good job fighting her, but she's still unprepared to go up against her aunt. And in order to end the fight, Diana uses her bracelets to basically unleash a power that neutralizes her and stops her. And I guess they fake her bleeding so that she'll just stop and be like, hey, you can go too far with fighting. You need to know what your limit is and know what, when to take a break on someone who is basically your equal. You're not your enemy. But she goes off, she runs, and she's kind of upset that she hurt her aunt, even though she really didn't, but, So she goes off, she goes on this cliff to, look out, and she sees a plane coming through the barrier that is over Themyscira, and it's a spy plane, and it comes crashing down, and she's like, oh, there's a person inside that biplane, and he's crashing in the ocean, he's gonna drown. So she goes out and gets the pilot, who is Steve Trevor, captain, part of the United States. I think that's wrong because I believe he's part of the English. What am I trying to think? He's a spy for the English, is what I'm trying to say. But here on Wikipedia it says he's a captain from the United States Army Air Service. So, maybe I'm wrong, but from what I recall in the film, he was an English spy who was working for the English government to gain intel and basically gain info on the Germans. And he's been getting specific information on a character whose name is I can't pronounce her actual name, so I'm just gonna say Dr. Poison because that's the comic booky name she has. Basically, she's making gas neutralizing bombs like mustard gas or hydrogen gas sort of things to basically bomb the Allies and kill. Well, is it Allies because it's World War One? I don't know. History buffs, you know where to comment below. Correct me on, what it is. It's but basically neutralize the English, the Americans, the people fighting on the other side of the war. And he's trying to get intel on what her formulas are and what she's doing. And he was able to get a book, but and get away with it. But he ended up on Themyscira. He almost drowns, but Diana saves him, and he ends up on Themyscira with all these warriors. And as he finally lands there and Diana saves her, the Germans come in. They find the barrier as well. And so there's this great fight scene between the Amazonians and the Germans who are coming in through the barrier. And it's great because they've never seen bullets before. They don't know what guns are. They've only have these great Greek weapons, but the bows, the arrows, the swords, the big great swords. And even though the Germans do get a lot of kills, including killing Diana's aunt, that's a really sad scene when they killed the aunt. Like, there's a couple moments in this film where I almost teared up because they hit a lot of really good emotional levels in this film. But one of the points is when Diana's aunt dies and she's like cradling her in her arms because she got killed by a bullet, which they never saw before. So she dies, and they take Steve Trevor in as to tell the truth, and they have the Lasso of Truth around him, which that was an interesting point that they actually used the Lasso of Truth in this film. Because the Lasso of Truth is kind of this silly thing that a lot of people make fun of, is like the idea of like, okay, now you gotta tell me this truth because I got the rope around you. But they make some sense of it actually and make it actually really interesting because they say it's like the Lasso of Truth is like heat based, so there's a lot of things like a lot of heat going on to the person, like basically causing them to tell the truth because they just want to get out of this like broiling heat that's on them, which I can see that makes sense. It was a really good explanation for something that seems a little silly in otherwise without that explanation, so I bought it. And they ask him what he's doing, and he says, I'm a spy. I'm trying to figure out what the Germans are doing. He shows them the book, and he's like, we're in the war to end all wars. There are people, children dying, there are bombs and explosives and weapons being used right now that are beyond comprehension, beyond imagination. And if you want to, you need to help us win this war and finish it, because if we don't, no one's going to survive. Everyone's going to die. And immediately when he says that, Diana thinks, okay, that's Ares. Ares is basically causing this war and causing them to fight amongst one another. So I should go, maybe get a few of my Amazonian friends with me, and let's go kill Ares. Let's get this war off so that people go back to normal, because she has this suspicion. She has this sort of thing throughout the film where she believes that the only reason why this war is going on is because Ares is alive. And if the Ares is dead, people won't war between each other anymore. And that he's basically the trigger point, that if you kill Ares, there will be no more war between man. And so she decides to sneak off with her shield, the Lasso of Truth, and the God Killer sword to go and kill Ares. So she sneaks out with Steve Trevor, but she gets caught by her mom, who is basically like, listen, I know I can't stop you. You're going to go out and you're going to try to kill Ares. Just be safe. The world of men doesn't deserve you. Be careful. Bye. I love you. Try to make it home safely if you can. So she leaves Themyscira with Steve Trevor, and they go off to England, and they have this really nice scene on the boat, which is like, it's the first scene that really establishes that this film is a comedy in some senses, like not hard chuckles all the way through comedy, but that it's being more comedic than other films, and not in an overbearing way. Like, I think that was some of the problems that Suicide Squad had, where it was trying to be like, look, we're more light and funny now, right? And it didn't pay off because it wasn't resonant throughout the entire film. It was just like, at points they had added comedy to make it look more funny than it actually was. Whereas here, it's resonant throughout the film, and that's, I think, the biggest point to this film is that it doesn't feel like it got messily edited in some editing and recording studio. It actually feels like someone actually took the time and filmed the entire film and then made it actually resonate and have themes and have character arcs and developments. It's very well done in the way it's done, because you see that throughout all films, the sort of things I mentioned before, but it really hasn't been done to this extent for a couple decades now. Honestly, these big sweeping epics with huge character arcs, with huge lessons that prevail, without these is just like these big. It's like a mix of like a war epic and like a big Greek Odyssey sort of thing, and that's such an interesting thing, and it works to a wonderful extent. Like, I think the closest thing I can resemble this thing to is Richard Donner's original Superman, where it's this big character epic about this one superhero who goes through an emotional journey. And it honestly, without feeling like it copies Richard Donner's Superman, absolutely has a lot of the themes that come from that film. And I think that's why this succeeds, is because it's trying to have a lot of the things that worked from Richard Donner's Superman and put it in here. And it works. You have this big 2.5 hour time fill, which generally I hate when films are overly long, but if your film is really good to the point where this film is, I will absolutely accept the fact that this film is 2.5 hours long. And when you have these big overarching themes of a lot of dramatic moments interlaced with smaller comedic moments, and just things like you have a scene on a boat where they're talking about why women and men on Earth don't sleep together if they're not married, and talking about like who their fathers were, and how Diana didn't have a father. She was made by Zeus after being formed out of clay, and that sort of thing. It's honestly refreshing to see, because you hardly see it anymore, where you can just take a character and give him this long story arc. You don't have to deal with any sort of messy, allusions to other films, or trying to intro something from something like just adding an unnecessary filler to feel like you're actually telling a full sweeping epic story about this one character. I don't know how long I've waited to see something like that. It's been a while. Usually if you do a character, like even something like Iron Man, it doesn't feel, it feels fun and it feels interesting, and I love Iron Man. I mean, Iron Man's great, but it doesn't feel that same of like an epic, like Iron Man is by no means an epic as far as film wise, but Wonder Woman kind of feels like that character epic that we've been waiting for since like a Richard Donner Superman or something of that nature. It's just, it feels good to be back in that mindset with a superhero film, because it's been so long since I've seen that with a superhero film. Now we're kind of back at that, and it's really refreshing to see. So they leave Themyscira, they got the funny scene on the boat, and they end up in London, and it's a crap heap. It's during that time where factory workers were everywhere, and there was smog in the air, and no one cared about the environment at all, so everything just got clunky and messy and weird. And she even mentions, this place is disgusting, and Steve Trevor's like, it's not for everyone. And they go to the British High Council to give them the book of Dr. Poison that Steve Trevor got, and try to read it. And no one's able to actually read it, except for Diana. She's able to read the book because she knows all these different languages. I guess being an Amazonian, she just has all these languages known to her because that's what they were given to her when they were made. But she's able to read it. It's like a mix between Ottoman and Turkish, I believe is what she said. And basically she's creating a formula that's hydrogen based that could go past gas masks and basically kill a bunch of people, and they would have no way to protect themselves from it. So they have to stop her, and Steve Trevor's like, listen, if this is actually real and they actually created something like this, we have to stop them. But the English government is not willing to do that because they're about ready to settle an agreement with Germany, and they don't want anything messing that up, even if that means, going into Germany or Belgium, I believe is where they were doing this, and attacking those, things. They want to assume that it's getting ready to be about peacetime. So Steve Trevor has to go in alone with Diana and a couple friends he rounds up from a bar who look like, low lifes, but they're actually really good guys, and you get to know these guys a little bit. Just like here and there, and they actually get to be really fun characters. My favorite is the Celtic guy who's a drunk, but because of Diana, he actually learns how to live without drinking, because that's how he generally lives his life, is he just lives it through a glass bottle, and even, he can even make a shot even when he is drunk, but he learns, through Diana, goading him and persuading him to do otherwise, that, he can live life as a sober man, and he can even learn to sing again, which is a old trait and habit that he used to do, but he didn't when he started drinking. It was he got rid of it, but now he's singing again, and that's a really nice scene that I enjoy. And you have the other man who is, I don't know what race he is, but he's the guy who can portray himself as a servant or a slave and be a master disguise sort of guy. And then you have this Indian chief who's basically this person who sells to either side and makes profit off it because he hates war and his people are all gone now, so this is just what he does. And to see all these people come together, it's real fun, because it doesn't feel like these characters are the most, this isn't Avengers where you're assuming all the biggest characters in the world together to this one epic fight. It's just a lot of these small characters going out for a battle of war, and then the one big character, which honestly, that scene along with a couple others that are in this film feel very much taken out of Marvel's first Captain America film. And I like that idea too, because time periods, and including wartime periods, and superheroes go really well together, I found. Sometimes they don't, but whether it's Captain America, Wonder Woman, The Rocketeer, or just anything of that nature, you can always seem to get a good film if you're able to evoke the time period well enough, and that superhero seems to fit well enough with that time period. And Wonder Woman does that absolutely. She fits right in with this World War I sort of attitude where, people are saying this is the war to end all wars, which is overly dramatic, but considering someone who hasn't been in this world very long and doesn't understand that, she comes in and says war to end all wars, that seems pretty serious. Now we know now that it wasn't the war to end all wars, and it was it just led to more wars actually, but to hear the idea of war to end all wars, that makes you assume that the world is ending and you need to do something about it now. And I like that idea, the idea that you're dragged into the war to end all wars. That's just kind of a cool idea, even if it isn't the war to end all wars. The idea that you would be dragged into something called the war to end all wars is just so fascinating to me. So they get all this big team together, and they're going to go off to the front lines to go basically stop Dr. Poison from releasing this hydrogen bomb that she has and she's creating. And as they're going to they're on the front lines, going through. They have a plan to go somewhere else, but Wonder Woman wants to go save these people from these Germans who are basically took their town and their people hostage. Excuse me. And Steve Trevor's you can't go through there. That's no man's land. This is a place that they've been fighting for a year to try to even gain an inch, and they haven't even done that, because these Germans keep firing from them, and they have no way of getting through to them. And Wonder Woman has this great scene where she's no one man's ever done it, but I am going to do it now. And she steps out of the barracks. She gets up there, and she just basically goes to town and kills all the Germans, and basically does what no man could and wins. And it's such a cool scene. I was so in love with that scene. There's a reason why it's in all the trailers and stuff, because it is the trademark scene of this film. The idea of Wonder Woman getting led into this new world and being introduced to all these things, but being told you can't do this, you can't do that, and finally just bucking the trend and saying, I'm going to do what no one can do because I am basically a powerful Amazonian woman and I have the ability to do something, and I'm not just going to stand there and let no one, people get hurt when I can actually do something. So she finally leads up the fight. She goes in, she kills basically all these Germans, along with Steve Trevor, who comes in on her side to aid and assist her, and she takes back the town, and they all rejoice and are happy, and it's like, look at this, powerful woman who took back our town for us, along with the troop of soldiers who helped her out, and they take the picture that you see in Batman vs. Superman at the beginning of this film, right there in that town, and that's where that picture comes from. It's from her after she rescued this town from the Germans, and on the next day, they're going to go in and infiltrate this gala that Dr. Poison and her general, who she works with, because that's how she gets funding and all, and resources, is this general who she is currently working with, and they are going to make a demonstration for the Kaiser, to show this new hydrogen bomb that they have, and basically say, hey, we can win this war, even though you want to go to a peace accord or something. We don't need to do that. We can actually end the war now and win the war with this new hydrogen bomb that we've created. So they have to go in and stop them. So Steve Trevor goes in as a German general, while Wonder Woman basically hijacks a woman and gets her dress and goes in in ball attire and gala, and she's trying to figure out who is Ares, who is the person in this German rank who is Ares, and she kind of ends up talking to the German general who's working with Dr. Poison, and she thinks, okay, this guy is Ares, because he talks about death and how it's a beautiful thing, and a war brings new life to the world, and that sort of idea. And Steve Trevor even tries to see if Dr. Poison is Ares, talking about how fire is beautiful and it brings about new life even from the ashes, and I think it's a beautiful thing. And she seems interested in a little bit, but it's not enough to prove she's Ares. And so this big mystery of who is Ares in this film? Who is the one who is basically hiding in sheep's clothing here? Because no one knows what Ares looks like. He could be anyone. So Wonder Woman finally decides she's going after the German general. She tries before to do it, but Captain Trevor stops her from killing him, and because he does that, the general kills the town that she just saved with the hydrogen bomb, and now she's angry. Now she's bad. She's even mad at Trevor for stopping her from killing him. So Trevor's like, listen, yeah, that was probably on me because that happened, but you know what? All right, go kill him. I didn't want you to do it because I didn't want you to blow our cover, but at this point, just go follow him. It doesn't matter. At this point, he killed the German town. Just go at him. I've seen how powerful you are. You can do it. Basically, finally willing to trust Wonder Woman. Basically, finally willing to let her just use her power to kill and get back at the general who killed that town. So she does. She's able to go up on that a little watchtower that he's in, and she goes to a little hand to hand, but eventually she kills him with the sword and he dies. And she's like, that's the end of it, right? And I killed Ares, but there's still war. There's still people getting ready to kill other people. And Captain Trevor comes up and she's acting like, why are they not stopping war? Why do they keep fighting anyway, even though I've already killed Ares? And he goes, well, it's probably not because they're under Ares' control or anything. People aren't not necessarily good. They can be bad. They can do awful things. They don't have to be necessarily under control to do something awful or terrible. But it's not about, and maybe we do deserve to all, be terribly punished and tried, and die for doing that, being so treacherous and evil. But it's not about what we deserve. It's about what you believe. It's about what you stand for in the face of that, and what you want going to do about it. Are you going to basically kill and eradicate a whole people because you believe they're doing something wrong? Or do you believe to stand for right, stand for good, and let people see that, and let people become that what you see in that. And she doesn't really understand, but she kind of wants to. And as Stephen Trevor leaves, he's going to stop the bomb and get it. Try to figure out a way to stop it out with his friends. He's going out there and like, how can we stop this? How can we do that? Because he had sent them out to look at the bomb while he went to talk to Diana. And he goes back to talk to them. And while he's doing so, Diana meets with actual Ares. We find out that Ares is played by... Okay, so the name of the guy he was pretending to be was Sir Patrick Morgan, who was this basically English lawmaker who was working with Stephen Trevor. Initially, he voted against Trevor going to Belgium to stop Dr. Poison and the general from creating this bomb. But later in the pub, when he's talking to all his friends, the Sir Patrick Morgan comes in and says, I know you're going to go and I can't stop you, which is a direct parallel to Wonder Woman's mom basically saying, I know I can't stop you, but go anyway and I'll give you a little help. And Sir Patrick Morgan does the same thing anyway. And so Wonder Woman sees that, or Diana sees that that trait with his mom and says, oh, okay, there are good people in this war, even though, some people can be jerks and be willing to kill people, even though that's not, like treating people like they're lesser or anything. There are people like that, but there are also people who are good and who are willing to help. Much like how our own mom willing to help, even though even though she didn't want her to go and do it, she helped her go and she helped her do the job that she wanted to do. But it turns out the reason he wanted to do it is because he wanted the war to continue, and that he is Ares, and that he is he's been the one behind it, and it's kind of this whole like, I wasn't what you thought I was it? And this is the point where I think the film takes a bit of a hit. Like, considering the other DCEU films that I've seen, this is not a huge third act bad. It does have problems, though. But I think it shares problems more with Marvel films than it does with the DCEU films, where it just kind of gets into a big fight with a villain because the build up to this villain is incredible. Like, they build up a lot about this guy and how he's basically top dog, but only got beat because Zeus barely beat him. And here they get to the point after all this build up, and I do appreciate the whole kind of I'm not what you appear. Like, when you think of the God of War, you think of this big, strong, muscly guy, but in the end, it could just be like some Weasley English guy. And I appreciate that, but in the end, it led to a lot of disappointment in the character of Ares, because when he comes back and pulls his armor on and, he's trying to be intimidating again, no longer do you see this dark hooded figure, but you see this Weasley English guy, this thin Weasley English guy in this big metallic suit trying to be commandeering and very commanding and just evil, and it doesn't really work. Like, it works enough to the point where I'm like, I can kind of buy it, but it's not a great as I would like it to be. But that's a minor nitpick, because honestly, a lot of this film doesn't revolve around Ares. It's about the character of a Wonder Woman going through this journey, learning more about not only herself, but about mankind and how she fills a role with mankind, what she believes about mankind, what she believes about herself, what she believes about Themyscira, what she believes about, even Ares. But it's more about Wonder Woman than Ares. They don't spend a lot of time with Ares. Mention how many Marvel films don't spend a lot of time with their villains, with the exception of a few cases. They don't really spend a lot of time with Ares, so you can kind of get past the fact that Ares kind of has this weird third act reveal that doesn't look right, but you can kind of buy it. So that would be my one problem. Also, the big problem is that it kind of does turn into it doesn't get as bad as other films, but it does get into the problem of big CGI weirdness at the end where people are just floating and there's big fireballs everywhere, and it kind of gets into that realm. But it's not terrible. I can look past it. I've seen much worse from this same universe, so it's not that terrible. Before she has to finish her fight with Ares, though, she basically talks to Steve Trevor after an explosion, so she can't hear him, which I thought was a clever thing. Is like, someone is saying their last words to you before they go die, because Steve Trevor is going to take the plane up that has the hydrogen bomb in it and just take it into the sky before it can hurt anyone. But he's going to say goodbye to Diana one last time, and he gives her his father's watch, which there was a point about earlier talking about, like how it's something that to show the passage of time, to show, when you should eat, when you should sleep, and how it kind of rolls our lives. But it's an important part of his life, and he wants to pass that on to Diana. So when he's about to die, he gives it to Diana to remember him by. While she is fighting Ares, she's going up into the sky to take out the plane. And when she sees that, she kind of gets enraged, and she's just taking out Germans one by one. And Ares has this big Emperor Palpatine moment where he's like, good, feed into your anger. And she kind of was like, oh, yeah, I did kind of hurt people just because I was angry that my love Steve Trevor died. And he basically has this thing where it's like, look at these people. Look at, Dr. Poison over here, who is this ugly person who hides behind a mask. This is what these people truly are. These ugly, worthless, pitiful creatures that should all be destroyed. And, she has this thing where it's like, they're not ugly, they're beautiful. And she gives basically the same speech that Steve Trevor gives to her in that third act. And basically says, it's not about what they deserve. It's about what you believe and whether you stand for it or not. And, Ares is trying all his best. He's summoning lightning, and she's like, I don't stand with war. I stand for love, which can defeat war. And, he says, then I must kill you. But she kills him anyway by using, her bracelets. Ares has been throwing lightning at her, and she's been catching the lightning in her bracelets, and then she throws it all back at him by clanging her bracelets together like she does in, Batman vs. Superman, or even the beginning of this film with the training fight. And that kills Ares. And then we cut back to modern day again, where she's looking at the photo, and then she puts it back in the case, and then she gets on her Wonder Woman suit and goes back to basically talk to Bruce about getting the rest of the team together and fighting parademons, apparently, which we'll see in Justice League. But that is Wonder Woman. That is the entire plot to it. And I have to say, I love this plot. I will say that the first two acts are the strongest, and then the third act kind of is good. It's good third act. It's fine, but it does falter in some places, especially with the villain and the kind of CGI weirdness that is kind of evident in every film now, especially with the DCEU. But it's honestly because of how strong these first two acts are that I'm willing to buy enough of that third act weirdness. And this is exactly now the point where I'm starting to understand where DC is trying to go with these films. They want these big personal narratives about these characters that are in their lineup that really haven't got this much screen time beyond Superman and Batman, and give them personal stories that are epic and big and sweeping, and then bringing that together into a big sweeping epic involving all the characters being brought together. And I think if each character had been given enough time to develop and saturate into their own things, and things like Batman versus Superman would have waited towards maybe a fourth or a fifth film, and we would have gotten a backstory on Superman, a backstory on Batman, or not even a backstory necessarily, but a starting story for Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and then all coming together in Batman versus Superman, where we get this full story that's with these characters who we've all finally grown in their own films into this one big film. And then you can start working on other people's films along with, new films about the people from Batman versus Superman, and then build into Justice League. I could kind of see where they would want to go with that, but they rushed it so much that I worry for Justice League. But I think they can do it now. Like, honestly, there's a blueprint now that I can see. I can visualize what they want to do with this. And, I pray every day that, Zack Snyder knows what he's doing with Justice League, because I need not because I love this Wonder Woman. I think it's Probably one of the best films I've seen this year, and one of the best comic book hero films I've probably seen in the past 5 years. Um, I don't think it's one of the all-time best. I would probably maybe top 20, maybe, but I wouldn't put it in top 10 or really even top 15. But like top 20, I could see it being somewhere in there because this is a really great film. I think that if they really want to continue this DCU and keep getting the critical praise that Wonder Woman did, they need to take the blueprint from this film and figure out how to keep transferring that into different films. The same way how Marvel took the blueprint from Iron Man and transplanted that into Captain America, Thor, and the Avengers, Ant-Man, and just find a way to make it work. And because now they have a footing. Now they finally have a film where they can say, we have the critics backing on this film, and we now know where the critics want us to go with this this universe, and where we can go with it and take that. I think they need to take this film and take a really hard look at it and figure out where they want to go with the rest of their films and how they want to proceed from here, because Wonder Woman is a great film that I'm so happy is great, because not only did I want to see a good DCEU movie, I wanted to see a good female-led superhero movie. We are now in an age where a lot of films are great and are led by female action heroes and female just heroes in general. And I think to the point now where we can actually have female superheroes lead films and do well at the box office and do well with critics and be interesting and have their own dynamic that we could finally have, because till now we've only had films like Elektra and Catwoman that were terrible and awful. Supergirl, that Supergirl's a great TV show, but the film Supergirl is atrocious and awful. There hasn't been a superhero film starring a female that has been both critically successful or box office successful. I think Wonder Woman's going to break both of those trends. I've already seen the Friday results for Wonder Woman. They look really good. I'm really happy that people are going out and seeing this film and not abandoning it like they do other female superhero films. This is sending a message to critics and to not only to critics but to movie studios. We want to see good female-driven superhero films. We will go out and pay money to see that. We haven't seen them in the past because they've been garbage and awful. But with Wonder Woman, a well-made, well-structured, a female superhero film, we will go out and watch that. We will go out and take our time and our money and go see that. And I'm so happy about that. The critics love it. I'm just happy that this is the film that is finally giving us what we want out of a DCEU film. I would have liked it to happen sooner, but I will take it now. I will take it now more than ever. As far as the characters go and the actors who play them, I will say this about Gal Gadot. I was never sure about her when she was originally cast. I had concerns because she's not an actor. She's a model. That's what she does. She does some acting roles, but they were always small, or they didn't have enough weight for me to ever consider her doing a major role like Wonder Woman. I didn't know how she was going to pull off the role. But watching this performance made me buy into her, because she did have a role in Batman vs. Superman. She did a great job in Batman vs. Superman, but it was like 5-10 minutes of screen time. Here, she has to go through a whole movie and act phenomenally well, and she does a great job. She's charismatic, she's funny, she's interesting. She's even beautiful and muscular and built, and she's everything I wanted out of a Wonder Woman. And I think now she is my representative of what I think of Wonder Woman when I see her. I always have the 70s Wonder Woman on. To even a lesser degree, I have the Wonder Woman from 2009. They got canceled, but you still see DVDs pulling around every now and again. I have those in my mind, and I always remember them. But, this, I think, to me, is the definitive Wonder Woman that we've been waiting for, and that is so cool to see. And I'm so happy that she does a great job in this role. I'm happy to see her pull it off, even though I didn't think she could pull it off. She absolutely did, and I'm so happy about that, because it's hard not only to be an actress and pull off a role this important, but to do it with very little acting experience and to do it this well is just doubly gratifying. And I'm so happy for Gal Gadot. I hope she gets more roles like this. Obviously she's not a thespian or a Shakespearean actor to pull off like a big, huge role. But she could pull off some roles now, I think, just off this Wonder Woman credit alone, because she actually does have some acting talent that I don't think we've been able to see in other films, either to just being in bad films or just like not being given good characters. But she does have a good character here. She's everything I want out of a Wonder Woman, and I can't wait to see what she does, both with Wonder Woman and whatever role she does next. Just hoping that, they give her good roles and not like something like Keeping Up with the Joneses or something where they don't give her anything but being, a model in a film trying to act. To actually give her good characters to work with. Chris Pine is Chris Pine. He is the charming, lovable, acting white guy who is not, he doesn't have any like quirks or anything. He's just like the normal guy, normal everyday guy, and he works perfectly fine as that. That's all you need out of Stephen Trevor. He's the normal soldier who's helping fight the war. That's it. That's all you need. He doesn't have anything particularly special about him. He's just the normal guy. And I think that kind of makes him... It works well in this film because that's what you need out of that character. But you could say that's also a fault of Chris Pine's acting, where he doesn't go outside of that role. Where it's often just him being, the average white guy, whether that's Captain Kirk or, Stephen Trevor or anything else that he's done. He has that sort of consistency in his acting, which, you can either see as a good thing or a bad thing. For here, it's a good thing. Not always going to be a good thing, though. I loved Robin Wright as Diana's aunt. That was awesome. I love Robin Wright, so to see her there, she does a great job. I personally felt sad when I saw her die. It was kind of, sad because I love Robin Wright, and having her character be so interesting and so dynamic, to see her die, it's sad, really. I really missed her when she was gone, but it's just that sort of thing where you get good actors to play good roles, good things are gonna happen to you. Connie Nielsen plays Queen Hippolyta. I hope I said that right. She does a great job as well. She's very commanding, very rulery. She does a great job as Diana's mom. I love that. David Thewlis plays Ares. Again, I already said he's a bit miscast, but I see what they were trying to go with it. I just don't think it worked. Anyone else who I care to mention? Owen Brenner's in this film as the Scottish guy that I appreciate, and yeah, Owen Brenner's great in this film. He's just like my favorite of these this pack of people who are going out on this mission with Wonder Woman. I think that's super interesting. But yeah, overall, this film is just well made from beginning to end. It has good themes throughout. It has good, good characters, good character arcs. Just overall, it feels like that character epic, that superhero character epic that we haven't really seen since maybe Donner's original Superman. You could even make a case for Burton's Batman, but I'm glad to see it back, man. It's super fun, super great. I love this film to a great extent. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Again, some of the things in the third act didn't work so well and kind of pulled down the film a little bit. But considering how well those first two acts are structured, this is almost close to like a 9.5. This is almost like a 9.3 in my case, where it's inched to 9.5, but I still consider it a 9 just because of a few just like minor problems in that third act that bring it down enough for me to say 9.3, or even just a 9 if I'm rounding down. But overall, guys, yeah, this is a great film. Go out and watch it if you haven't seen it already, which you should have if you watched this review. But if not, go out and watch it. It's great. I love it. I'm glad to finally have a film in the DCU I can point to as like the gold standard for what I want in a DCEU film. And I can't wait to see Justice League. I'm praying it's good. I want Zack Snyder to give a good DCEU film that I can say it's not Zack Snyder's fault that any of his films in this universe failed. It's because of Warner Brothers and what they did with these films. So yeah, guys, please subscribe, like, comment below, do all those fun YouTube things. If this was 2006, I'd say rate 5 stars. Just do everything you can. Share if you will. Please, I'm trying to get this show out to as many people as possible and trying to get this to actually have a viewership of some sort. So please, comment, like, share, all those beautiful things. Subscribe. And I will be back next week with another film. If you take a look at the sketch, you might guess what it is, but I won't say it just in case. And until next time, guys, have a good day.